Ashurbanipal, also spelled Assurbanipal or Ashurbanipal, was an Assyrian king, the son of Esarhaddon and the last strong king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. He is famed for amassing a significant collection of cuneiform documents for his royal palace at Nineveh. This collection, known as the Library of Ashurbanipal, is now housed at the British Museum. In the Bible he is called Asenappar. Roman historian Justinus identified him as Sardanapalus. Early life. Ashurbanipal was born toward the end of a 1500-year period of Assyrian ascendancy. His father, Esarhaddon, the youngest son of Sennacherib, had become heir when the crown prince Ashur-nadin-Shumi was deposed by rebels from his position as vassal for Babylon. Esarhaddon was the son not of Sennacherib's queen, Tashmetum-Sharit, but of the West Semitic palace woman, Zakuta the Pure, known by her native name, Nikia. The only queen known for Esarhaddon was Ashur-Hamit, who died in 672 BC. Ashurbanipal grew up in the small palace called Bet Rejuti, built by his grandfather Sennacherib when he was crown prince in the northern quadrant of Nineveh. In 694 BC, Sennacherib had completed the palace without rival at the southwest corner of the Acropolis, obliterating most of the older structures. The House of Succession had become the palace of Esarhaddon, the crown prince. In this house, Ashurbanipal's grandfather was assassinated by uncles identified only from the biblical account Esdras, Elich and Shareza. For this conspiracy, Esarhaddon emerged as king in 681 BC. He proceeded to rebuild as his residence the Beit Mashati. The House of Succession was left to his mother and the younger children, including Ashurbanipal. The names of 5 brothers and 1 sister are known. Sin-Idnapli, the intended crown prince, died prior to 672 BC, not having been expected to become heir to the throne. Ashurbanipal was trained in scholarly pursuits as well as the usual horsemanship, hunting, chariotry, soldierliness, craftsmanship, and royal decorum. In a unique autobiographical statement, Ashurbanipal specified his youthful scholarly pursuits as having included oil divination, mathematics, and reading and writing. According to legend, Ashurbanipal was the only Assyrian king who learned how to read and write. Royal succession. Ashurbanipal succeeded his father Esarhaddon 681–669 BC as king of Assyria and ruler of the Assyrian Empire in 668 BC. Esarhaddon had prepared for the accession of his son by imposing a vassal treaty upon his Persian, Median and Parthian subjects, ensuring that they accepted Ashurbanipal's dominance in advance. He had also rebuilt Babylon and set up another of his sons Shamash-Shum-Ukin to rule there, subject to his brother Ashurbanipal in Nineveh. Military accomplishments. Despite being a popular king among his subjects, he was also known for his cruelty to his enemies. Some pictures depict him putting a dog chain through the jaw of a defeated king and then making him live in a dog kennel. Many paintings of the period exhibit his brutality. Ashurbanipal inherited from Esarhaddon not only the throne but also the ongoing war with Egypt and Kush, Nubia. Ashurbanipal sent an army against them in 667 BC that defeated the Nubian king of Egypt Taharqa near Memphis, while Ashurbanipal stayed at his capital in Nineveh. At the same time, the Egyptian vassals rebelled and were also defeated. All of the vanquished leaders save one were sent to Nineveh. Only Necho I, the native Egyptian prince of Sais, convinced the Assyrians of his loyalty and was sent back to become the Assyrian puppet pharaoh of Egypt. After the death of Taharqa in 664 BC, his nephew and successor Tantamani invaded Upper Egypt and made Thebes his capital. In Memphis he defeated the other Egyptian princes, and Nietzsche may have died in the battle. Another army was sent by Assurbanipal, and again it succeeded in defeating the Cushites, Nubians. Tantamani was driven back to his homeland in Nubia and stayed there. The Assyrians plundered Thebes and took much booty home with them. How the Assyrian interference in Egypt ended is not certain, but Necho's son Psammetichus I gained independence while keeping his relations with Assyria friendly. An Assyrian royal inscription tells how the Lydian king Gyges received dreams from the Assyrian god Ashur. The dreams told him that when he submitted to Ashurbanipal he would conquer his foes. After he sent his ambassadors to Dsa, he defeated his Sumerian enemies. But later, when he supported the rebellion of the Egyptian rebels, his country was overrun by the Cilicians. Assyria was by then master of the largest empire the world had yet seen, stretching from the Caucasus in the north to North Africa in the south, and from the East Mediterranean in the west to central Iran in the east. Ashurbanipal enjoyed the subjugation of Babylon, Chaldea, Media, Persia, Egypt, Libya, Elam, Gutium, Phrygia, Manea, Cordouin, Aramea, Urartu, Lydia, Cilicia, Commagene, Caria, Phoenicia, Israel, Judah, Samaria, Moab, Edom, Nabatea, Arabia, the Neo-Hittites, Dilmun, Nubia, Scythia, Samaria, Armenia and Cyprus, with few problems during Ashurbanipal's reign. For the time being, the dual monarchy in Mesopotamia went well. For his assignment of his brother Ashurbanipal sent a statue of the divinity Marduk with him as sign of goodwill. Shamash-shuma-Ukin's power was limited. He performed Babylonian rituals, but the official building projects were still executed by his younger brother. During his first years, Elam was still in peace as it was under his father. Ashurbanipal sent food supplies during a famine. Around 664 BC the situation changed, and Artaxerxes, the Elamite king, attacked Babylonia by surprise. Assyria delayed in sending aid to Babylon. This could have been caused for two reasons. Either the soothing messages of Elamite ambassadors, or Ashurbanipal might simply not have been present at the time. Elamites retreated before the Assyrian troops, and in the same year Artaxerxes died. He was succeeded by Tumen, who was not his legitimate heir, so many Elamite princes had to flee to Ashurbanipal's court, including Artaxerxes' oldest son Humban-Nikash. In 658–657 BC the two empires clashed again, when the province of Gambulu in 664 rebelled against the Assyrians, and Ashurbanipal decided to punish them. On the other hand, Tumen saw his authority threatened by the Elamite princes at the Assyrian court and demanded their extradition. The Assyrian forces invaded Elam and fought a battle at the Ula River. Elam was defeated in the battle, in which, according to Assyrian reliefs, Tumen committed suicide. Ashurbanipal installed Humban-Nikash as king of Madaktu and another prince, Tamaratu, as king of the city Hidalu. Elam was considered a vassal of Assyria, and tribute was imposed on it. With the Elamite problem solved, the Assyrians could finally punish Gambulu and seized its capital. Then the victorious army marched home, taking with them the head of Tumen. In Nineveh, when the Elamite ambassadors saw the head, one tore out his beard and the other committed suicide. As further humiliation, the head of the Elamite king was put on display at the port of Nineveh. The death and head of Tumen was depicted multiple times in the reliefs of Ashurbanipal's palace. Friction grew between the two brother kings, and in 652 BC Babylon rebelled. This time Babylon was not alone. It had allied itself with a host of peoples resentful of Assyrian rule, including Scythian, Chaldean and Aramaean tribes dwelling in its southern regions, the kings of Gutium, Amurru, Amela, the Persians, the Arabs and Nabateans dwelling in the Arabian Peninsula, and even Elam. According to later Aramaic tale on Papyrus 63. Shamash-Shum-Ukin formally declared war on Ashurbanipal in a letter where he claims that his brother is only the governor of Nineveh and his subject. Again the Assyrians delayed an answer, this time due to unfavorable omens. It's not certain how the rebellion affected the Assyrian heartlands, but there was some unrest in the cities. When Babylon finally was attacked, the Assyrians were victorious. Civil war prevented by further military aid, and in 648 BC Borsippa and Babylon were besieged. Without aid the situation was hopeless. After 2 years Shamash-Shum-Ukin met his end in his burning palace just before the city surrendered. This time Babylon was not destroyed as under Sennacherib, but a massacre of the rebels took place, according to the king's inscriptions, with the Assyrians exacting savage revenge upon the Babylonians, Aramaeans, Chaldeans and Persians, together with an invasion of Arabia and the brutal subjugation of the Arab tribes to the south of Mesopotamia. Assurbanipal allowed Babylon to keep its semi-autonomous position, but it became more formalized than before. The next king, Kandalanu, left no official inscription, probably as his function was only ritual. The end of the Assyrian Empire. During the final 2 decades of Ashurbanipal's rule, Assyria was peaceful and its dominance went unchallenged, but the country apparently faced an underlying decline due to overexpansion, the lack of funds from its devastated colonies, and insufficient troops to govern its vast empire. Documentation from the last years of Ashurbanipal's reign is scarce. The last attestations of Ashurbanipal's reign are of his year 38, but according to the Greek historian Castor, he reigned for 42 years until 627 BC. After Ashurbanipal's death in 627 BC he was succeeded by Ashur-etil-ilani. However, Assyria soon descended into a series of internal civil wars that would ultimately lead to its downfall. Ashur-etil-ilani was deposed as ruler of the empire in 623 BC by a general named Sinshu-Mulishiah, who was also declared king of Babylon. His brother Sin-Sharishkun deposed the usurper in 622 BC, but he too was beset by a series of crippling civil wars against his rule in Assyria itself. During his rule, the Assyrian Empire began to unravel, with subject peoples ceasing to pay tribute. Babylonia took advantage of the anarchy in Assyria and rebelled under Nabopolassar, who claimed the throne in 620 BC, and the next 4 years saw Sin-Sharishkun encamped in Babylonia trying to unseat Nabopolassar whilst trying to quell wholesale rebellion amongst his own people in the Assyrian heartland. The anarchic state in Mesopotamia weakened Assyria to such a degree that a number of its vassal peoples, the Babylonians, Chaldeans, Medes, Persians, Scythians and Cimmerians, attacked it in unison in 616 BC, and after a brutal struggle, sacked Nineveh and slew Sin-Sharishkun in 612 BC. Assyrian resistance continued from 612 BC under Ashur-uballit II, an Assyrian general who was crowned amid the house-to-house fighting in Nineveh and managed to fight his way out of the city and form a new Assyrian capital at Aran. However, defeat by the alliance at Carchemish in 605 BC ended any realistic hopes of a resurrection of an Assyrian empire. Although traces of Assyrian imperial organization, administration and possible resistance endured in and around Dur-Katlimmu until 599 BC. Art and culture. Ashurbanipal was proud of his scribal education. He asserts this in the statement, "I Ashurbanipal within took care of the wisdom of Nebo, the whole of the inscribed tablets, of all the clay tablets, the whole of the mysteries and difficulties I solved." He was one of the few kings who could read the cuneiform script in Akkadian and Sumerian, and claimed that he even read texts from before the Great Flood. He was also able to solve mathematical problems. During his reign, he collected cuneiform texts from all over Mesopotamia, especially Babylonia, in the Library of Nineveh. Nineveh was the capital city of Assyria from the 9th–7th centuries BC, but had been destroyed in 612 BC. Ashurbanipal's palace in the Nineveh was re-excavated in December 1853. The library was discovered in the Lion Hunt Room. The Library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh is perhaps the most compelling discovery in the ancient Near East. There have been over 30,000 clay tablets and fragments uncovered in Ashurbanipal's library, providing archaeologists with an amazing wealth of Mesopotamian literary, religious and administrative work. Those clay tablets were written in cuneiform, which derives from the Latin word cune, which means wedge in English, because it is created by making wedges on clay tablets. The Assurbanipal library in Nineveh was a royal library, and the first library to classify the collection according to genres. Four-sided tablets were utilized for financial transactions, and two-sided clay tablets were reserved for agricultural records. Among the findings was the Enuma Elish, also known as the Epic of Creation, which depicts a traditional Babylonian view of creation where the god Marduk slays Tiamat, the personification of salt water, and creates the world from her body. In this particular version, man is created from the blood of a revolting god, King U, in order to toil on behalf of the gods. Also found in Nineveh, the Epic of Gilgamesh is a compelling account of the hero and his friend Enkidu seeking out to destroy the demon Humbaba. The gods punished the pair for their arrogance, however, by having Enkidu die from an illness. After Enkidu's death, Gilgamesh seeks Utnapishtim, the survivor of the deluge, in order to find out the secret of immortality. Also, the Annals of Ashurbanipal were found here. The Annals of Ashurbanipal were detailed, almost novelistic accounts of his military and civic achievements. The library also included hymns and prayers, medical, mathematical, ritual, divinatory and astrological texts, alongside all sorts of administrative documents, letters and contracts. The discovery of these tablets in 1853 by Hormuzd-Strassam provided the modern world its first detailed glimpse of the languages and literature of ancient Mesopotamia. Ashurbanipal had a fascination with the past, and during his 42-year reign he sponsored the collection and copying of older texts for his library at Nineveh. Aside from the many other myths found in Nineveh, a large selection of omen texts has been excavated and deciphered. Mark van der Meerup points out the Enuma Enlil was a popular text among them. It contained omens dealing with the moon, its visibility, eclipses, and conjunction with planets and fixed stars, the sun, its corona, spots, and eclipses, the weather, namely lightning, thunder, and clouds, and the planets and the visibility, appearance, and stations. Other genres found during excavations included standard lists used by scribes and scholars, word lists, bilingual vocabularies, lists of signs and synonyms, lists of medical diagnoses, astrological texts. The scribal texts proved to be very helpful in deciphering cuneiform. All of these texts shed some light on the religious beliefs surrounding Mesopotamian and Assyrian belief, but the library also can be interpreted as a manifestation of the value Ashurbanipal must have had for the preservation of Mesopotamian literature and culture. The British Museum in London boasts an exhilarating exhibit of carvings from the North Palace of Ashurbanipal, also excavated at Nineveh, depicting the king hunting and killing lions. In Assyria, the lion hunt was seen as a royal sport. The depictions were seen as a symbol of the king's ability to guard the nation. The garden party relief shows the king and his queen having a banquet celebrating the Assyrian triumph over to Ammon in the campaign against Elam. The fine carvings serve as testimony to Ashurbanipal's high regard for art, but also communicate an important message meant to be passed down for posterity. The sculptor Fred Parr had created a larger-than-life statue of Ashurbanipal, which was placed on a street near the San Francisco City Hall main square in 1988. The sculpture shows Assurbanipal wearing a short tunic and holds a lioned cub in his proper right arm. The figure stands on a concrete base, with bronze plaque and rosettes. The statue stands across from City Hall next to the Asian Art Museum and faces the San Francisco Library. Robert E. Howard wrote a short story entitled The Fire of Ashurbanipal, first published in the December 1936 issue of Weird Tales magazine, about an accursed duel belonging to a king of long ago, whom the Grecians called Sardanapalus and the Semitic peoples Ashurbanipal. Popular culture featured as a playable leader in the computer strategy game Civilization V, Brave New World. One of the people mentioned in the They Might Be Giants song, the Mesopotamians, on their album The Else. Ashurbanipal will be introduced as the main antagonist of the 2017 film The Mummy, included in the Universal Monsters cinematic universe.